Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Armani, SVP Business Development at Mimik. I'm honored to be here today as part of the IEEE 5G Forum. In my presentation, I'm gonna go through the journey from central cloud to hybrid edge cloud, which is something that we at Mimik have been hyper-focused and we've been working on over the past decade, and we have commercialized today. My background is engineering, and I've been in the business world for the past over a decade, all in the software sector, and I've been with Mimik since a very early stage. So let's first a little bit about our company and the executive team. We are headquartered in US. We have offices in Canada, Europe, and UK. We have over 40 employees, and 300% man years of R&D has gone to developing our core technology. We have 11 patents issued, 11 pending, and several in making. Our product is a commercial ready product. It already has been used by customers in various segments such as health tech, fintech, gaming, just to name a few. And we have a series of partners that have been very deeply engaged with us. We have an experienced leadership team that come from backgrounds collectively in deep tech, from telco, cloud, API, mobile application development, wireless communication, and embedded systems. Just to name a few, for instance, Siavash Alamuti, our executive chairman, whom I'm sure many of you know by his invention of Alamuti code, which is used in every wireless device today. Our CTO, Michel Berger, he's a TM Forum Fellow because 120 operators around the world are using the APIs that he has defined. And our CEO and founder, Feyyaz Mandish, has been busy building companies and different brands over the past 2 decades. Amongst our board members, the most recent one is Kathy Wood. There's not a single day that she's not on the news. She's the star in the stock market world, founder, CEO of ARK Invest. Her brand is known for disruptive technologies that impact the future. She was the main investor behind Tesla and Bitcoin. And when she was looking at the edge technologies, she and her team came across our company, and she's a big believer. She's sitting on our board of directors, and she's an investor in our company. These are some of the latest testimonials from our customer partners that I just put here for you. Again, Kathy, one of the things that she always says is that Mimik is at the aha moment of cloud computing, the way she felt about Tesla or Bitcoin at its early days. And the very most recent one that was part of our press release that came out of LF Edge was from Joe Pearson, who's the chair at of the Technology Steering Committee of Open Horizon at LF Edge. It's a fairly technical quote that he gave us that basically he's a huge fan of our technology and the architecture that we're enabling. These are just some of the recent awards that our company has received. We were covered as part of the Gartner Hype Cycle both last year and this year on the edge computing solutions. Now, let's look at the status of the data connectivity and processing, the way it's done today. Today, the data that gets generated from all these devices that are sitting on the edge goes through a combination of private and public cloud in order for this data to get stored, processed, and streamed amongst different devices, or even sent back to the same device. So all in all, around 90% of all home, enterprise, and industrial data goes through cloud today. Now, just in about 3 years, the amount of data that is getting generated from these devices is going to increase by 3 times. So that's the huge number that we're looking at. Now, this is causing few challenges that we already have started experiencing. One is cost of hosting, cost of hardware and energy. The other one is the security. There is less security. Why? Because more data in motion, more vulnerability to security hacks. There's almost zero data privacy, both on the enterprise data as well as consumer data. Why? Because today we have absolutely no choice but to send every piece of data through a third-party cloud servers in order for that data to do absolutely anything with that data. There is issues around latency in communication, and that especially for mission critical applications that, for instance, have requirements of less than 8 milliseconds, where safety is at stake, for instance. So if everything needs to go through a middleman, then obviously we would have issues around latency. There are problems around bandwidth congestion and such. And then another one is really important to note is that it's really a wastage of already existing hardware and compute power that is on the edge. There are billions of devices right now at the edge on the edge running applications that is simply not being really leveraged. And that's simply a wastage. And of course, carbon emission footprint issues that, for instance, by year 2025, based on ICT, there will be 20% of all world's electricity will be used by data centers. And as a result, today, enterprises, they all have carbon emission footprint reduction targets that they're trying to achieve on an annual basis. Now, let's look at the data journey from the device to the data center. So today on these edge devices, what we call edge devices. So to us, edge devices are, again, devices that are running the applications, right? This can be mobile devices or or headless devices or IoT devices. So on this side, on the device side, it's just a light client that is running, but the entire app intelligence runs on the backend in the cloud. So the data has to travel through multiple layers of network in order to go and get processed and go back. And each layer introduces some latency in the communication. So the way things work, the data gets basically travels through network back and forth. There's more increase in latency and more cost in terms of energy and less privacy and less security, right? Now, the question becomes, why do we do things this way? Is it because these end devices, the client devices, are incapable of processing the data? So now let's look at the evolution of devices at the edge. Just for example, looking at a Samsung Galaxy device or even an iPhone 13, these devices, when you look at the spec, they have more processing power, storage, memory than, let's say, a server room that had 7-8 years ago. So literally, these devices are a server in your hand, right? And when you're looking at the history over the past several years, these devices are simply becoming more and more powerful year by year in terms of the compute power. Now, when you're looking at the headless devices, the same thing. You see improvement every year in compute, memory, and storage, in addition to the GPU, MCU, and MPUs that is running on these devices. So these devices, all in all, are becoming more intelligent and more powerful. So the issue is not the edge devices lacking processing capabilities. Now, let's look at the evolution of apps from before to now. So in the past, apps were monolithic. So basically you had a thin client that is running on the edge device, on the end device, and then you had a monolith backend running on the cloud, right? So it was a big piece of code that was the app intelligence and running in the cloud. Now, in the modern world today, the way apps are getting architected is that on the front end is the same light client. So there hasn't been any improvements there, but the backend now is comprised of microservices and API gateways. So, so when app communicates with the backend, is not the entire code basically gets called, it's microservices that is related to those functions. Now, what we at Mimik are enabling is a more balanced approach to this whole thing. We are enabling also on the front end application side, microservice architecture. So the same microservice architecture that is happening on the cloud side, now Mimik is enabling that on the front end application side, such that when you're loading your application, now your application will have a brain of its own. It can run some of the functions locally right on the device as part of the app, and only go to the cloud and backend when necessary for running global functions, for instance. So as a result, by this model, you are leveraging the device on the edge, the power on the edge, in combination with the backend, and you're reducing the transfer back and forth through the network to the cloud by around 70%. And by doing this, what we're really enabling is an edge-to-edge and edge-to-cloud communication, right? So on the left side, which is showing you today's fully centralized model, when applications on devices want to communicate with one another, there are multiple back and forths to the cloud in order for the two devices to be able to discover, connect, and communicate amongst each other. This is the case even if, let's say, two devices are literally sitting next to each other on the same network in the same location. Now we're moving from this to the right side by our Mimik hybrid edge cloud platform, such that now the apps on these devices are basically, they're not just dumb client, they have a brain, they're comprised of microservices, and these devices are now able to discover, connect, and communicate with one another directly through the API gateway and microservices that are running as part of the app, and go to the cloud when necessary for global functions. And that's what we mean by saying we're enabling edge-to-edge and edge-to-cloud communication. So when you're looking at the entire continuum of devices and processing, so we have the cloud, regional data centers, on-premise cloud, gateways, and then all these end devices. What we're saying is that we shouldn't be really talking so much about cloud computing, edge computing, but rather a continuum computing, where every one of these categories of devices play their own role and they all work with one another in a continuum basis. So, and we have to really take an edge-in approach, meaning that since the applications are running on these end devices, and that's where the data gets generated, we need to leverage the power of these end devices first, and then go through these other layers as it's necessary. So when you're looking at this pyramid of the devices, there are billions of devices and applications that are running at this bottom, right? And then there are these different layers of servers that are provided by different companies. So Mimik really enables all these billions of devices to act as part of this continuum computing or edge computing, and works with every other layer. In fact, a lot of names that you see on this slide are partners, and we're working with them closely, such as IBM and Amazon, for instance. Now, What we have a suite of edge solutions for developers and enterprises, which contains these three things basically. One, the core of our technology and product is called edgeEngine and edge SDK, which is something that basically enables this microservice architecture on the front end application that I just explained. So as a developer, whether you're an independent developer or a developer working in an enterprise, you can go to our developer portal and download our edgeEngine or edge SDK for the operating system of your choice and start developing your edge microservices. And then once done, you can publish your application. And of course, we have a big set of edge microservices as well that we do make them available to our customers and partners. And then we have some app domain software as a service components that we offer to our enterprise customers, and some business intelligence such as analytics and marketplace that is coming up soon. And this is some of the benefits that our customers and partners have experienced so far. So by using our technology, they've been able to see a reduction in their overall hosting cost by 50%. And that 50% includes all the fees and SaaS licensing that goes to Mimik, minus all that. All in all, they're seeing around 50% reduction in that cost. They're seeing much lower time to market, simply because when you're developing your application in this form, for instance, you develop it for one platform, Android, and now you want to go to iOS, Windows, Linux, or other platforms, you don't have to rewrite the entire application from scratch. You can reuse all the edge microservices that you've developed for all the other platforms, and there's just a little bit of development that you need to do extra as you go across different platforms. So as a result, your application development time gets cut by around 50%. And you see decrease in your development cost as a result of that. You see around 4 times increase in security. In fact, it's more than that, but at least around four times, because the less data goes through different layers and different devices in order to go and get processed, the less prone to security issues. You have 100% control over privacy. What we mean by that is that now we're enabling the applications to decide what data goes to the cloud and what data remains on the device. And the data that remains on the device, it doesn't mean that it cannot get accessed by anybody. No, you can decide what device and what applications get access to that data, a read access, without even having to copy or move that data from the originating device. So as a result, you have full control over your data, whether it's consumer data or enterprise data. Zero latency when there's one device, for instance, because a lot of functions can happen now locally when you're launching the app. You don't even have to leave the device, and you would experience much lower latency when it's amongst multiple devices involved in the communication, which I'm going to get into. A much more resilient system. Why? Because when your applications are architected in this form, even if your internet connectivity drops for a while, your operation can continue until your internet is back, because now you don't have the 100% reliance on the internet connectivity. And then you see 70% reduction in the data transfer to the cloud. Our technology is basically compatible with any operating system, any cloud methodology, and any network connectivity. Now, on top of that, you would see significant improvement in the device battery life when your application is architected this way. Why? Because of 2 main reasons. One is that when your app is microservice based, when you're launching your app, you're calling specific microservices that you want to run the function for. You're not launching the whole thing. The other one is that the less data goes out through the network out to get processed, the more battery you are saving on the device side. So all in all, you would be seeing around 20 times more in battery life saving when apps are microservice based. Now, when it comes to security and privacy, our EdgeEngine is basically aligned with the zero trust and defense in depth security. That is something that is being discussed out there a lot, simply because we have 7 layers of security built into our technology at the communication level between EdgeEngine and EdgeEngine that could be on the same device or different devices. At the data level, we use AES 128-bit encryption. At protocol layer, at API layer, at application layer, we're using OpenID Connect, and at container layer, every microservice is running in its own container. So it's a best-in-class security system, and also on the data privacy and GDPR compliance, which is something that I just highlighted earlier. Now, when it comes to the world of legacy apps, this is something that is being discussed a lot out there, because there are many legacy apps out there that now are looking to modernize their application and introduce new features. The way legacy apps are architected, again, is that the entire backend is one big monolith piece of code. And when enterprises and companies want to add any new feature to these applications, they need to basically dissect and the backend code in order to make changes. And in many cases, they have to throw away the whole thing. So it becomes a process much lengthier and much more costly. Now, and this is just to simply show what's happening in the modernizing apps today, is that, again, you pretty much throw away the entire code that you have today, and then you rebuild your app intelligence based on microservice architecture, which is something that is enabled today. And this is something that, for instance, hyperscalers are encouraging their customers to do today by modernizing their legacy applications. Now, what we do on top of that with our technology at Mimik, we're saying that we're extending the life of your legacy apps without you needing to really touch your monolith backend, and you would introduce new features one microservice at a time into your front-end application. So the front-end application basically before was nothing. It was just a live client. Now you're decomposing that into microservice architecture and API gateway, where it can you can basically enable those new features there, and you don't really, your backend monolith backend can stay there to do its thing, and you don't have to worry about it, and we don't need to touch it. So as a result, it makes it much simpler for enterprises to modernize their application this way. And on top of that, they would get all the benefits that I just highlighted earlier by architecting their application in a hybrid edge cloud form. Now, we have if you want to use our platform as a developer, again, you don't have to learn anything new. It's the same standard microservice serverless architecture that you'll be doing here, using the same tools that you're using today, RESTful APIs. We're OS agnostic, cross-platform support, and cross-cloud. And it's you're using the same software development languages that you're using for your app development, so there is nothing new there. And at the end, you'll be saving a lot of money when it comes to the OpEx and CapEx. And this is just to show you that we're supporting all these different OSs, and we even have a light version for sensors, pre-RTOS, that basically turns the sensor into a two-way communication device that can communicate now with other devices. Now, At the same time, now let's look at when multiple devices are involved. Again, we're saying that we're moving from the mobile internet into a hyper-connected world where all these different systems need to communicate with each other and exchange knowledge and information. Now, what Mimik is enabling is that moving from the left side to the right side by empowering the service mesh and enabling these devices to form ad hoc clusters of communication and be able to discover and communicate with one another through microservice clusters based on network, proximity, and account, and exchange knowledge in a peer-to-peer fashion, and only go to the cloud when necessary. So by doing this, basically what we're doing, we're enabling dynamic load balancing right on the edge and enabling this service mesh, microservice mesh amongst these devices so that they can communicate and exchange knowledge in a much faster, more private and more secure manner. When you're looking at, these are our product features, it's the biggest slide. So basically Mimik provides the most comprehensive toolbox when it comes to edge development. There are companies who provide some of these features, but basically with Mimik, we provide all of this together in a very lightweight way. For instance, if you look at the orchestration, containers, resilience, just the top three features in the traditional systems, you're looking at anywhere over 1 gigabytes of footprint, but we're enabling that with less than 6 megabytes of footprint, and that can be done on any device, not just on a fixed gateway or fixed server device. So by providing all these features, basically you can look at Mimik as your edge toolbox for application development, and by doing this, we're really making the cloud more intelligent as well by processing and enabling this decision making right from the device where all these data is getting generated. It's one platform for every industry segment, but of course, when you go from segment to segment, the value proposition varies. For fintech, security, privacy, high value, smart city, transportation, latency, because safety is at the stake, oil and gas mining is internet connectivity, so on and so forth. So in conclusion, when you think of Mimik, basically, if you're developing a new application in any segment, or if you're looking to modernize your legacy applications, Mimik is basically your development toolkit that you can go to use to develop your application in a fully microservice architecture, such that now your app is a smart app, and in combination with the intelligence in the cloud, you can have this more balanced approach in your full architecture to get all the benefits that I explained earlier in terms of cost, bandwidth, latency, resiliency, and we're available for all operating systems, work with any network connectivity and any cloud. And we can get, by using our platform, you can be GDPR compliance and not worry about the data privacy. It's really a green technology platform when you look at it, because we're leveraging already existing hardware that is available on the edge. Thank you so much. I hope you found this presentation useful, and I'm open to questions now.